Drilling square or straight into a piece of timber is something that us DIYers and woodworkers have to do all the time, and it's never as easy as it looks. So today I'm going to show you 3 homemade jigs to make your life easier and your projects more accurate, and something you can add to your drill that I guarantee you've never seen before that will solve this problem forever. When you drill a hole in a piece of timber, most of the time you can get away with it even if it's a little bit wonky. But there's many occasions that you really need a nice straight hole that ends up absolutely perpendicular to the face that you're working from. And it's the perennial question, and it's not as easy as it looks, because if you want to drill a hole in a piece of timber, from where I'm standing, it's fairly easy to line up the drill so it's vertical. There's lots of references in this room and I can see if it's vertical in this direction. However, when I look from the side, it's quite clear that I'm not vertical in this plane, which I can adjust and make sure that I'm now vertical in this plane. However, when I go back again, I realise that I'm now out and I can adjust this. And what you find you're doing is you can end up going round and round in circles until you get fed up doing it and you drill the hole anyway. So there's various different ways to help you drill a perpendicular hole. The first way is a technique that I used when I installed my lock into my workshop door. I set up a vertical piece of timber that helped me hold the drill in the right position, and I could slide down as the hole progressed, meaning that I could keep it in the right plane until I got to the bottom of the hole. Now that's all well and good, but quite often it's not possible or practical to set up large vertical pieces of timber just to try to drill holes of this type. Now on the market there are jigs that you can buy from tool shops to help you do this, but they're quite expensive. So today I'm going to show you how to build 3 homemade jigs for very little cost out of scraps around your workshop, and give you a fourth idea that solves the problem for good without ever having to even buy or make a jig. Just before we do that, I'd just like to remind you that Proper DIY is now on Instagram, and we're accepting membership for Patreon, with lots of people have signed up. So if you're interested in seeing behind the scenes of this Proper DIY, go over to Patreon. There'll be a link in the description below. So let's go for the first basic jig and I'll show you how it's made. Here I'm using a scrap piece of 25mm thick MDF, just cut to a manageable size. And after gathering together all of my various size drill bits from all over the workshop, I simply drill through the piece with each one in size order. So there you go, that's the very first basic jig. It doesn't get easier than that, but it does rely on you having a drill press or a pillar drill to be able to drill vertically, and not everyone's got that. But once you do make one of these, it's fairly easy to use. You just have to find the right hole. Then if you actually put your drill bit all the way through, you could position it exactly where you need to before lining it up and drilling the hole. The next jig I'm making is out of 35 by 21mm planed all round timber that I know is square. I've just had this piece in the workshop. I cut 2 pieces around the same length and stagger them so I form a vertical corner the drill can run against. I don't use any mechanical fixings here, just glue. And after getting rid of most of the excess, I used the flat top of the workbench to help line the two pieces together. I firstly clamped them down, making sure the clamp is spanning both, then clamped them together so they're now exactly parallel to each other. So we're going to leave that jig just to get some strength before we finish it off. Definitely remove it from the workbench before it glues itself there forever. That's definitely not cool and something that Norm Abram wouldn't be impressed with at all. So we're going to move on to the third jig, which is something down the similar sort of lines, but requires a router. I mark the centre position of a piece of 4x2 and then using a V-bit in the router, I route out a V-shaped slot parallel to the face of the timber. Cutting this 4x2 an inch or so thick at 90 degrees with a miter saw, I now end up with a block that's exactly 90 degrees to the slot that I've just formed, that the drill can then run down. Back to the second jig, and I cut a section of aluminium angle from an offcut of an edging strip that my Patreon members would have seen before in one of their videos, and then simply remove the sharp edges with a file. This I epoxy into one end of the jig to reinforce that internal corner to stop wear from the drill bit. So I know what you're saying. You're saying, Stuart, where's this fourth way of drilling vertically without a jig? Well, actually, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not seeing this done before. If I know my workbench is level and horizontal, then all I have to do is make sure that my drill and my drill bit is dead vertical. So what I've done is I've gone and bought some bubbles, some round bubbles off of Amazon. They're only £1 or so each. So if I mount my drill bit in a vise and know that it's absolutely vertical, and then on top of that, I mount my drill and clamp it to the drill bit and know that that's vertical. Then I can glue one of these onto the top of the drill and make sure it's in the middle. When that glue or epoxy has gone off, forevermore, I'll know when my drill is vertical. I shim up my workbench to make sure it's level, which is easy to do if you've got a set of my retractable casters fitted to your bench. Video link, top right. I clamp the longest drill bit I have in the vise, which still allows enough sticking up for me to hold a spirit level against it and adjust it until it's dead vertical. I remove the battery from the drill just so it's got less chance of pulling the bit to one side and clamp it to the bit firmly. Okay, I'm happy with that. It's dead in the middle. Now I know the drill bit is vertical and this is well clamped onto the drill bit. the bubble is dead in the middle. So that means I've got a truly vertical drill bit, and this bubble is telling me so as well. I must admit, off camera, I did some trials with super glue on this sort of rubber type material that I've got on my drill here, and I'm surprised that super glue actually took to it really well. I actually stuck one of the bubbles onto the same type of material on my impact driver, and it's absolutely set solid. I must admit, I thought I was going to have to use epoxy, but this super glue seems to stick really well. So I'm going to leave that for 10 minutes, let it dry, and then do a trial and see if it's worked. So my jigs are fully painted and dry. Really good idea to paint jigs, else they'll end up in the scrap bin at some point. So let's just go through them in conclusion. So the very straightforward block seems to work quite well actually. It's easy to set the hole and pretty straightforward. Can't get much more basic than that. The next one, which is the V channel, I don't think is quite as sophisticated, but it does mean that you can just keep drilling that hole until it's full depth. And then lastly, my double-ended one with the aluminium strip at the end seems to work quite well. The aluminium does grate a little bit against the drill bit, so I don't know if that would gradually wear drill bits out if you use them a lot. And once again, you can just take it out of the way to drill it full depth. But I think there's two main drawbacks to all of these jigs. Firstly, they have to have a certain thickness to be accurate so you can stand up the bit. But for smaller drills, that is quite thick and you're not going to be able to drill very deep before you come to the end of the drill bit. So that's one drawback. Secondly, even if you paint them and put your favourite YouTube channel sticker on them as well, at some point when you really, really want to use them, you won't be able to find them, or is that just me anyway? So I still very much like my nipple on the back of my drill, which I think can drill really accurately. Fast, and it's always where you want it, and you're never going to lose it. Anyway, the choice is yours. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. As I said earlier, please go and check out our Patreon page. It'd be great to see you over there for all the extra content and the behind the scenes as well. So until next week, have fun with your jigs.